In the world television premiere, it's Scooby-Doo in a brand new movie adventure. This time, the monsters are real. Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater presents Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. Tonight at 8, only on Cartoon Network.
All right, guys. Welcome to the first episode of Cinema Chads. Um, we couldn't think of a name. We were thinking this or what was it? Kinoholics was the other one you
Yeah.
had.
Well, I liked movie jerks. I thought about that after you made the poster,
Oh
and we were talking
yeah,
about how great the word jerk is.
we could be movie jerks. We don't have to stick to Cinema Chads.
Every name the podcast gets a new title.
That would be great. There's a different name every time.
It's title fluid, the first title fluid YouTube channel.
That's true. Yeah, we can't identify. Well, the thing I thought with Kinoholics was just how do we define? Because I think most people use Kino now ironically, not
Yeah.
unironically, so, like, are we gonna be unironically talking about? Because if we were doing a thing called Kinoholics, in my head, we'd be talking about, like, Bergman films, you know?
In my mind, we'd just be watching a review, bro.
Yeah, that's the thing, like, let's so for the time being, we will be the Cinema Chads. That's who
Yes,
we
until
are.
further notice.
Yeah, until this doesn't get enough views and we have to change it.
We have to rebrand after a sexual scandal.
Yeah, the Me Too podcast. Our special guest today, Kevin Spacey.
Hashtag not me.
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. This is going to be part of a Halloween series to kick the show off. So for the first few episodes, we're going to talk about Halloween movies. Not all of them we're going to love. It's just going to be sort of a generalized thing. We're going to be picking random. There's no sort of structure to it. The reason we picked this one is originally we were going to do like kind of a commentary thing, and we were like, well, this movie's only like 75 minutes long, and we've both seen it 100 times. So it seemed like a good idea, but now we're just talking about it. But uh, I guess the first thing I want to bring up here, because I kind of have a list here of things that I want to cover as we figure out a format as we go. So, do you remember the first time you saw the movie? And can you talk about that experience a little bit to just kind of give us a preface to because I'm assuming we have different experiences because I'm older than you, so I think I was more there in the moment when it happened, and maybe it was a little bit later for you, but I could be wrong.
You know, we talk about it like the end of World War II, or like 9/11 or something. Like, where were you? But
Where were you when Zombie Island came? When the monsters were real?
this is like a bunch of people in New York City walking, and a shadow looms over, and they look up in the sky, and it's just a VHS hovering over them.
It's like Independence Day. Will Smith drops the paper and he looks up.
It blows up the White House.
Row.
Anyhow, no, I'm too young. Like, I know it's one of those things like Willy Wonka for me, where I just remember it being a part of my life forever. I remember watching it, but I don't remember a first time.
Well, do you remember, I guess, when did you start to become conscious of its quality outside of like you were a kid? When you started to be like, let's say a teenager maybe, and you were like, oh, this is like a
Yeah,
genuinely good movie. Because that's, I think, the most surprising thing about it after all these years. Because it's over 20 years old at this point.
yeah, for sure. Because like, especially back in the day, like the Mountain Dew before the Monster Energy generation. It was the Mountain Dew generation of Edge, where like I don't like fucking kids cartoons. Those are gay, and you would say that back then. But like, there was a point where you start to come around on some things where you'd be like with your friends, and it'd be like you're hanging out in lunch, and you like when he comes out of the closet, like actually I kind of like Scooby Doo, and you'd be like, yeah, I didn't want to say anything, but I do too. I remember some of that talk around the time, and then it was on Cartoon Network. And I remember I was like on an old desktop computer, kind of like side eyeing it the whole time, and I was like, "This is actually really good. This is this is good stuff."
Well, what I remember is the hype around it because one thing I did in my research, which was looking at a Wikipedia page for a minute, was that they say that this is what Wikipedia says. They claim there was a $50 million marketing campaign behind this movie at the time. and this was a home video release. So nobody today is going to understand this. That's a certain age. That I mean, God, I hate to sound old, but the how big home video was as a market in the 90s going into the 2000s, or straight to video movies, and that they were profitable. Like Mask of the
Yeah,
Phantasm, they released in the theater, it didn't do well, but then it was big on home video, and then they released more Batman films. They originally planned to release this in theaters at one point, and then they decided to do, and they did this with other movies too. There's this Alvin and the Chipmunk Halloween movies, which I don't know why they thought, "Hey, let's do Alvin and the Chipmunk with a Halloween." I like those movies, but it's odd.
yeah. No, I watch his movies all the time. It'd be on Cartoon Network every
Yeah.
Halloween. It was Cartoon Network. I think it was that, but it might have been Boomerang. I think they played Alvin and Scooby Doo the originals on Boomerang, and then they did the movies on Cartoon Network.
Well, what
The
essentially
Pac-Man Christmas special.
I well, I remember the Yogi Bear, like the Yogi Bear one at the cabin during Christmas because he comes out of hibernation. Well,
That's really funny. I don't remember that one.
this is apparently what happened was Scooby-Doo was pretty much a dead brand by the early 90s, because I just its reputation had declined throughout the 80s with like 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, the Scooby-Doo and Scrappy show, and a lot of stuff like that. And then they started to play reruns of it on Cartoon Network when I was a kid, and that's when I first saw Scooby-Doo. And then it had regained, because it seems weird now to think that there was a point Scooby-Doo was dying off, because I gotta think with now, it's probably got the most longevity out of any cartoon I can think of. I don't think any other cartoon from the 60s. Like if you go to Walmart, there's always a Scooby-Doo section, even now, and they still make Scooby-Doo
The
content. But
only competitor I can think is like Mickey Mouse, and even that, like as a cartoon, as a brand, it's continued, but like nobody's talking about the new Mickey Mouse show.
no, exactly. So Scooby-Doo as a brand was pretty much dead, and then they started playing reruns in the 90s, and then they did a pup named Scooby-Doo, which was popular, and I remember watching that as a kid too. And they thought, okay, let's actually do something with this franchise. And the shocking thing was that I didn't even think about this at the time, or until I read about it, that they really hadn't had anything where the main group, the Scooby Gang, was together in something since like 1984. In an episode of one of those Scooby Doo shows, because Freddy and Velma aren't in most of the shows after the original run and Scooby Doo movies and all that. So this movie, a lot of the things
I
are
have a
weird about.
theory. I
They
apologize.
Oh, no, go ahead. What do you have?
Okay, I was gonna say because I was just thinking about. I was looking at Daphne. And I was like, it's funny. They kind of made her like Gail Weathers in this. And I thought, what year did Scream come out? And it says 1996, and this was 1998. It's probably already in development. This is probably wrong, but I do think this is the Scooby Doo for the Scream generation, and that meta approach to the series. I do wonder if they saw it in Scream was like, oh, we could apply this to Scooby Doo.
Well, I want to talk about that because there's other elements. I guess I'll just talk about the first time I saw it real quick, because I like what you're saying, and that's one thing I want to talk about is there's an aesthetic element of this movie of its time that I think really served it well. Um, but when I saw this, it was a big deal. Like I remember the marketing campaign. I remember like when Cartoon Network first showed it in like 99 on Halloween, and my mom and me went to go get Taco Bell, and I was like beaming with excitement to go. I will say I told my friend at work today that we were gonna watch this, and I was gonna get Taco Bell and watch this movie, and he looked at me and he said, "That's the most pop punk thing ever."
Well, it's funny. I was just told today by a coworker. I was talking about that too, and a coworker told me, I guess, a simple plan recorded the song for "What's New, Scooby Doo."
Yeah.
I always thought it was a knockoff of Sum 41. I never thought they actually got the Sum 41.
Well, I forgot that Third Eye Blind did the
Yeah,
music in this, and that's like one of I think their debut
it's
album
so
has
funny.
aged like amazing. That's like one of my favorite albums ever. We'll talk about the soundtrack later, though. I have that on here, but I remember seeing this on Cartoon Network and then buying the VHS, and it was very around the time like Pokemon the first movie and stuff like that. And yeah, I was probably 8 or 9. I immediately fell in love with this. I mean, at the time, and I was a hardcore. My whole bedroom was Scooby Doo as a kid. I'd been watching Scooby Doo, Where Are You, and all the other variations on Cartoon Network, and I was just blown away by this. And I watched Witch's Ghost, and uh, alien invaders and cyber chase, and then Scooby-Doo is back in a big way. But as time has gone on, it's so clear that I like those three other movies, and I used to think about them all kind of collectively, but now in retrospect, like, this is by far the best Scooby-Doo film that's ever been made.
Yeah, the others I marathoned them 2 years ago, and like I like all of them still. But especially, I think Witch's Ghost I always saw is like on the level of
Me
Zombie
too. Well,
Island,
I think it was the
and
Hex
then
Girls
rewatching
thing
it.
was the
And then what
attraction
sucks is
to the Hex
there's
Girls.
that, but yeah, they put a spell on us. But like rewatching it, all that stuff is so dated, and I love it. It's funny, but like eco goth and shit like that is so 90s in a bad way.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. Well, also just like
It's
when
the craft,
I always liked the setting of that movie. I always thought it was very relaxing, and it's like
the
New
town.
England. Yeah, the
The
town.
third act's incredible too. The third act really saves that
No, it
movie.
does. That's when it's like, yeah, because that's all I remember thinking about it is how good the third act is, the plot twist, and Tim Curry at the end.
Exactly.
And it's like,
You remember
holy
that and the
shit.
Hex Girls.
Yeah.
Then there's another like 20, 30 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, that's like very generic. But the thing I was reading about this that they outsourced a lot of this to like Japan, I think. So it's like it's got this they did this a lot back in the day where Western shows would be animated by Eastern companies, and I even think Scooby Doo was created by an Asian person. Like the drawing design was done by an Asian person.
They had an Asian voice actor for Scooby. You
Ruh-roh.
didn't notice he was Lutlow.
That's why his words aren't pronounced right. He's just an Asian guy. But the crazy thing reading about this that blew my mind was that it seems like they gave all these guys who had been with the franchise a long time like all this creative freedom with this movie, and that they spent that's what I read is that they like basically the studio just let them do what they want. They were passionate about it. Everybody worked really hard on it. They were debating what the ideas were because I guess they had a premise for a episode of SWAT Cats, the show, that was some of the elements that are in this, and then they had another idea, and somebody was like, "Well, why don't you just put those two ideas together?" And that's sort of how they came up with the concept of Scooby Doo on Zombie Island. And another weird thing is I mean, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but like the fact that they recast all the voice actors except for Frank Welker as Freddy. And they even wanted to change
Yeah.
him because they thought the octave in his voice was too low. And then they realized that they had been speeding up older Scooby Doo episodes for more ads. Because I remember that as a kid watching like Scooby Doo and Cartoon Network. It always seemed like it was you know what I mean? Like it moved
It was
awkwardly.
really fast. Well, I watched the first episode of the original series yesterday, and it was funny because hearing how different Shaggy's voice is than what we're used to today. Like, I always remember it being different, but not that different. And then, yeah, it felt much slower and more methodical than like I remembered. I remember like an episode was like an episode in 10 minutes. It felt like, but I felt the pacing last night.
Yeah, no, it is dated. I mean, I love the old Scooby Doo show, but like it's like you watch like 5 episodes and you're like, okay. Um,
Exactly. No, it's a lot of fun, but it's like they used to be like M and M's. You could just eat them. Now it's like in episodes of Snickers. You just want one of them.
so my next thing I brought up here, where would you rank this in the franchise? So I'll do mine real quick, and then you tell me. This is
Mhm.
this is what I would give like the gold, silver, bronze to in Scooby Doo. So I would say Mystery Incorporated's the best, for me, and it was the Scooby Doo show I always wanted my entire life, and it's somehow like still underrated, even though a lot of people acknowledge how good it is, but it still feels like it's like where it's like people are like, "Oh, that was a great Scooby Doo show," and I'm sitting here like, "No, that was one of the best television shows of the decade." Um, then I would go the original just because of atmosphere and the fact it's the original and everything. And there's I think the monsters in the original show are probably the best Scooby Doo ever was. You can't really top like the creeper and the witch and all that stuff or the locations. And then I'd put this right at number 3 because this is easily the best movie, live action, or animated in Scooby Doo.
Yeah, for me, I would put this at the top. It's tough with Mystery Inc. because I really went back and forth between them and still do sometimes. But where I put this ahead is that I think as a movie, to me, this is perfect.
Hmm.
Whereas Mystery Inc. is great. I think the highs of Mystery Inc. are higher, but aesthetically, I do like Zombie Island more. I know it's a budget thing. I don't want to judge. I like how Mystery Inc. looks most of the time, but I'm not fully into the aesthetics of the show. And there's just certain little missteps, which to be fair is like 30, 40 hours as opposed to an hour of content. So you're going to get that. But to me, Zombie Island is just a little more perfect. So I would do Zombie Island, then Mystery Inc., then the original series. And yeah, I like them all a lot. I like the sequel movies to this, but they're all pretty flawed or dated in their own ways.
Well, the sequel movies feel like what this movie should feel like.
Hmm.
But then every time I watch this movie, I'm always like, why? How the fuck is this so good? I've been dealing with
Yeah,
this for like 20 something years. Like every time I watch Scooby Doo on Zombie Island, I'm like, how the hell is this like one of the best? I don't know. It's like one of the best horror comedy movies ever. It's like in that rare American Werewolf in London kind of place. It's like just one of the perfect like um genre movie. It's also just one of the best like Bayou New Orleans movies as well.
I was talking about it today, and I wonder how much of this movie is a tribute to Val Lewton. Between something like obviously Cat People, but also I
Mhm.
Walked with a Zombie and that kind of bayou, um, just swampy horror, the voodoo aspects of it. I don't know if it was intentional. I don't think it was, but I get very strong Val Lewton vibes from this.
Well, I want to so I got my next thing here I want to talk about the horror elements of this and the mystery. So I think what makes this stand out as opposed to most other Scooby-Doo things is the fact that this is a genuinely scary movie at points. Like it's not the horror isn't always played up for comedy, which is a big trope in Scooby Doo, and then the mystery. Um, I think what like blows me away about this movie till this day in a major way isn't the fact that, and we could talk about this in a bit, but the fact that there's not that there's that plot twist at the end, but there's like two plot twists that I think are really impressive from just a writing standpoint. And I mean this genuinely. I don't even mean like Scooby Doo standards. I mean just like by a movie standard, it's impressive because you think the bad guys the whole time are the zombies, and I don't know if anyone's ever done this the way it's done in this movie. The fact that the zombies are victims in this, and that's kind of
Yeah.
a secondary twist to the main twist of who the actual villains are.
What's that movie, The Hunger, with David Bowie and Susan Sarandon?
Yeah.
That's kind of similar-ish. I don't think it's direct. I don't think they influenced by it or anything. But at the end, with all the old dead people coming back to life to get the vampire, is
Well,
almost
well,
close.
well, just like I don't know, like when I first saw this movie, I was pretty certain. I mean, to me, the gimmick of it was that they go to the island and then there's zombies there and the zombies are real, and I thought, okay, that's cool. But the fact that they go beyond that, I just still think is like super impressive. The
And
ambition of it.
the animation on the cat people's so good. It's like a perfect animated werewolf transformation.
Oh, it's yeah, no, that's what I want to talk about. Like, because I guess we're gonna plot a bit, and we'll talk about aesthetics because you brought up the Scream thing. So we've been foreplaying a
Teasing.
little bit, but let's immediately like what I love about this movie because it was in the recasting the voice actors, and we could talk about that a bit because I'm mixed on a couple of the vocal performances because I think it would serve the movie better if it was the original voice actors just because what the movie is. But the fact that they're broke up at the beginning and it's more modernized, it's not like the 60s or 70s. And then it's like it's when that Shaggy's working at the airport and they're watching it on the TV. And the fact that all of them come together and that she is this Gail Weathers and that there's a Blair Witch found footage aesthetic element to this that's very late 90s of like we're going to go film these things to see if they're real. And the skepticism of the movie, which Scooby-Doo was always kind of based in skepticism, like there's nothing really going on, it's just a man behind a mask. But the fact that they play
Yeah.
with that idea here and explore it in a way that no other Scooby-Doo thing has, even since this, You
It
know,
actually pisses me off. Like, I want more real monsters in Scooby-Doo. Fans don't seem to want that. They seem to want more of the same, but I don't get why.
yeah, because Mystery Inc. Even made it a joke where like they would reveal their plan at the end and it would just be ridiculous. Like it would be all
Yeah,
these things that they were like being meta about it. Where in this movie, that montage with Daphne and them, where they go around and reveal all the people being fake, I think is such a brilliant setup, and it feels so. It's like a reinvention of the whole Scooby Doo formula
it's
that
also a
whole
meta
idea.
commentary
Hmm.
where it's like, oh, audiences are sick of seeing them solve mysteries, and every time it's the one person they meet in town, and it's always a guy in the mask. And then it's like, oh, these characters feel the same exact way, and they've got this work fatigue from the repetitiveness of us. So then you connect with the characters if you have a passing interest, but then fell out of favor with Scooby Doo.
Well, it almost serves. It feels more like every time I watch this movie, I forget I'm watching an animated film. Like I feel like that works in a live action context. That idea, like if you were gonna do like the movie they
Yeah,
ended up making Scooby Doo, even though that's aged in a positive way for a lot of us because of the memes of it and everything. But this is closer to what I think like a Scooby Doo movie should have been. Where,
yeah.
like if this was a live action movie, and it'd probably be longer, it wouldn't be like 70 minutes, but that approach of like, okay, you have that hook of like she's a newswoman, we're gonna go do this stuff, but it is about what Scooby Doo is, and then introducing the reality of it. I think it's just so smart, and it just blows me away that that's like I don't know why it took them so long to figure that out, but the fact that they figured this out so perfectly and then nobody's really captured that again uh with this franchise. Because you said something to me once about this movie has character development and then all the other Scooby-Doo movies after it don't.
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted was the next, like, Witch's Ghost, they develop it a little bit more, and then, was it Alien Invaders, they get a little bit more. But yeah, immediately I think that what it does too is it hooks all, it becomes instead of a children's movie, a family film by giving them character development, by splitting the gang up at the beginning. That does so much to win audiences back, I think. Because you're interested, you're like, you're going to have expectations going into this, especially at this point in time in the franchise, and they're just breaking all the rules immediately, consciously so,
Well, yeah, and
and making good decisions. It's not Last Jedi shit.
it was all these people that had been working on Scooby-Doo for such a long time too. So, I can feel the passion behind this movie. I mean, it's like people who really understand what it is, and they're taking it very seriously. And then just the transition of like, hey, you guys want to go to this bayou? This is a real thing. The way they get seduced into
It's so
that,
funny.
it's hilarious. Like that whole
They're just at like
stretch.
a farmer's market, as I
Yeah.
recall.
Yeah. Well, that whole transition from that when they get on the boat and like the guy with like the pet, he's got like what, like a pet alligator or something.
Yeah, Mark Hamill.
That whole stretch is like when it's probably its most goofy, and like that's
Yeah,
what.
because Scooby goes into the water, I think, and the guy's pet gator chases him.
Yeah, it's like a girl too. It's like Petunia or something like that. It has like a girl's name, and he loves his pet alligator. Um, but then when they actually get to the island, you're like, this is okay. We're in like, I don't want to compare it to True Detective or something, but there's this like Southern Gothic feel to it when they actually get to like the plantation. Um,
Yeah, one thing I love about it, and it's so small. Well, I won't call it too small, but it had so much of Freddy's characters, him loving peppers, and I identify with that so much because like I eat so many peppers every day, and just him having a silly little thing, and it kind of pisses Daphne off, and she gets jealous because it's usually Shaggy getting those tropes, but in this one, Freddy gets a little more character than just being the leader.
well, yeah, that's the big thing about this is the dynamics, the fact that Freddie and Daphne clearly aren't together, and Freddie's liking, the girl at the place, and that.
And she's jealous.
Yeah, that there's those dynamics and that they're not dressed like they used to be except for, I think Shaggy's dressed in his old
Shaggy
outfit.
and Velma.
But like there's that scene where Freddy goes to put the ascot on and he's like, "Nah." and he like throws
Yeah,
it.
he's getting ready for dinner.
That's fucking like, why wasn't that like? I remember in the movie they had Freddie Prinze Jr. wearing the ascot, and I'm like, that's such a better way to do that. Where like, if you did a live action movie, and you went to go put it on, he was like, oh, this no, I'm not doing that. It's so clever.
Yeah.
Like you
Well,
acknowledge it, but it's like, yeah, he's like, well, I like that in this movie. It's about them being older, because in Scooby Doo the OG, they're like high school kids, and in this, they're clearly like in their
adults.
30s. Yeah, they're grown up, so that they think about things differently, and they're dealing with the image. I think this movie has a lot to do with the way that the characters see themselves and the way that the audience has a relationship with the franchise.
Yeah, well, I think they just fully take advantage of the feature length format where it's like, okay, we're going to give these characters more. We're going to give the plot two big twists instead of like kind of the obvious reveal that's supposed to be a twist. We're going to get a bunch of monsters instead of just one. You're going to get two great song montages. They really take advantage of that in a way that I don't think a lot of movies do. Where as short as it is, it's jam packed with content.
Yeah, there's something happening in every scene, just about. If it's a scene where Shaggy and Scooby go to eat the crawdads in the van,
Yeah, and it's
it's
actually scary. You actually like worry for them, even like having seen it 100 times. When they're out in the van because they don't want the dog in the house, you feel for Scooby. You feel scared for them.
well, man, that I guess we'll get into this here. We'll just talk about it. It's fucking terror time again. I love the comparison
Oh
you
yeah,
made about the song montage. Because it doesn't even occur to me. You're so right. The old Scooby Doo, they would play like those '60s, those like Davy Jones songs. You know, 7 days a week now, and they'd be running
and then
from
like just
like.
in and out of the doors.
But the fact you're so right, the way they reinvent that, and then they're like, because I felt this way at the time when it came out, and I still blown away. How the fuck is this song so good? Where did this come from? That montage of like when it kicks in, when you just hear the guitar riff come in. It's like the first time
It
you hear the.
probably is the highlight of the movie.
Oh, it's 100%, 100%. The first time you watch it and every time you watch it after, all you're
Yeah,
thinking about is the terror time sequence and how
I mean
catchy
it's
the
like
song is.
Rocky. Like it's like Eyes or I was always Eyes of the Dragon. What the hell is it? Eye of the Tiger. I can't believe I forgot that. It's like that, but for
The
Scooby Doo.
Eye of the Dragon. Yo, Rocky,
Close
you gotta
enough.
be a dragon. What are we?
Imagining Rocky like training to fight a dragon.
Yeah. Mickey, I don't know if I could do it this time. He can breathe fire. What are we waiting for?
Apollo has to train him.
I always love that like Mickey's just randomly in the corner in that scene. Ages of the hospital, and then Mickey's just there. And, what are we waiting for? And I'm just like, what? I use that way too much for anything. When someone's like, "Hey, you want to get pizza?" I was like, "What are we waiting for?"
I just loved it in the third movie that like Mr. T just murders him. Like he literally he assaults him and then he dies immediately after.
Not only does he
That's just
murder
murder.
him, he calls Rocky's wife a woman, and alludes to, "You need to come let me fuck you." Like Rocky needs to get cucked, and I'll show you real man. Like this is what Clubber Lang does. And then in Rocky 4, Apollo Creed also gets murdered in front of thousands of people, and there's no ramifications.
No,
You
back
could
then Chads could be Chads.
you could just
You could just get
murder
away with
you
that
could
shit.
just murder someone if you were in a boxing ring. That was basically the attitude. It was like, well, he got in the ring with him.
It was just Thunderdome.
um yeah, but the terror time, the sequence, the song, I mean, it's not like pop punk is a genre I'm a huge fan of, or even that era of music is something I'm not in love with, but like, goddamn, what a banger. Like
Yeah,
everything about it, even the moment, because it's. I also think it's crucial because it's the moment that they realize that the zombies are real. That's the big turning point in the movie for the
the
characters.
animation with what they do with the zombies because you don't see zombies in animated movies that much.
No, and not
So
like depicted scary. It's usually kind of like,
yeah, and they're ripping their fucking heads off and shit. Like it's insane. They're using the full
yeah.
potential of animation where it's like we don't need prosthetic effects. CGI is not a thing yet, so that's not really part of the equation. So we can animate zombies. You could do whatever you want with them, and they do.
But that's what always blew me away about is just how hardcore it gets.
Hmm.
that the movie just doesn't fuck around. Like it basically isn't that adult. The tone is, but then like the moment that it actually turns into a horror movie, like you get the long stretch of
Oh,
it, you know?
I'll never forget the shot where they reveal it, where you see Scooby and Shaggy, and they're in that pit, and then you see a pair of rotten legs, and the camera pans up, and you just see a naked zombie man ass, and you see balls and a dick, and the balls and dick are like just connected by sinew of skin, and they just fall off right in front of Shaggy and Scooby, and they scream and hold each other. I was like, this is intense for a kids movie.
I'm glad you brought it up. That scene where they're in the pit is like horrifying the way it's like directed.
I can't think of it without thinking of Vice Principals now, though,
I
with
know.
Gamby's pit.
Well, that's also scary. That's a good
Yeah,
comparison, honestly. Like this is like a Jody Hill Scooby Doo movie.
that's a good point. Yeah, it actually is.
But then, yeah, that moment when it happens, I don't know. What can you say about Terror Time? What's the name of the band? It's like
I keep looking it up like all throughout today because
it's
it's such a weird name. Sky
Sky
Cycle,
Psych.
of course. How could I forget?
That doesn't fit.
It sounds like a Spyro sequel that nobody played. Spyro the Dragon, Sky Cycle.
Like both of the
He's in a
songs,
bicycle in the sky.
both of the songs they have, and I like the other one too. The Ghost is here. I would not
Hmm.
think the name of the band is Sky Cycle.
No,
That's a
they
fucking.
really should just name themselves Terror Time the band
That's the thing.
because that's all they'll ever be known
If you
as.
went to a concert and they pulled that out, you'd lose your fucking mind. Like the hype would be
I'm just like
unreal.
scrolling through the Wikipedia right now, and the first sentence is amazing for formation. While touring as the main character in The Who's Tommy for 16 months, Isaacs was planning to form a band after he finished touring. That is just not how I expected that article to begin.
We just listened to their whole sound. We're like, wow, this band was great. We found out like Sky Cycle's Kino.
I just like I'm imagining him going on tour as Tommy, and he's backstage, and he's like his head's in his hands. I just have these melodies in my head. I have this vision, but I'm tethered to this shitty album by this hack band. And then like in his head it's Terror Time again is playing and he just has to realize it. I want that musical biopic.
It all builds
Oz
up. That's
Lerman's Sky Cycle.
no, I don't. Yeah, Sky Cycle. Oh my god, that's just like that's the funniest thing so far is that there's a band called Sky Cycle.
Well, that's you always wonder like why did this band never take off? They're the best, and then they're called Sky. Oh, that's why. Yeah, nobody's gonna pay to buy tickets to see Sky Cycle.
Yeah, you would never think of this. Somebody was like, "Hey, it's the guys who wrote It's Terror Time again." You'd be like, "What?" Yeah, the tickets are only $10. They're like,
Then nobody knows what to search in Ticketmaster.
yeah, it's just like the worst. It's like the worst name I could think of. Like you said, it sounds like a shitty game. I mean, it's like it sounds like a shitty thing in an airport. Like you have to get on the Sky Cycle or
It's
like,
a little exercise machine in the
yeah,
corner of the
yeah.
airplane.
It's from today. Buy a Sky Cycle.
Well, shit.
But no,
They
this
should just be
the
called the Zombie
music.
Islanders.
But just the music of the movie, like even though there's just the songs and then the score of it and everything too, is just like super
Yeah.
impressive.
The scene that always sticks with me and has always, and maybe it's an OCD thing, like as a child, it triggered me in some way, is when Velma has a spatula and she's uncovering the hidden message beneath the wallpaper. So she's
Yeah.
like scraping it off, and then it's made out of the old abandoned ship. I don't know why that always was like an iconic moment from my childhood.
Well, that's a question
That and being
I
molested.
have my uncle Sky Cycle.
Yeah, my uncle was in a band, and he was also a predator.
I mean, if I was,
Allegedly. I guess I should preface that because that is a real
you
thing.
remember years ago we wanted to make that like mockumentary about pop punk bands. We were gonna do like a Spinal
Yeah,
Tap.
of course.
If I was gonna make a fake band like a joke name like Spinal Tap, I would name them Sky
Guys,
Cycle.
cycle.
Yeah, I can't think of anything funnier.
I love the joke with that we were gonna do where I think we would do it as a web series. So there's gonna be seasons, and the end of the first season or between seasons, the lead singer we just recast, because the first one went to jail for like dating an underage girl, and
Yeah,
how prophetic that was. Now that like,
I
because that
know.
was back in like 2013, 2014, we were
Yeah,
joking about that.
yeah.
And what do you know?
Well, I remember we used to make jokes about Bryan Singer. We used to make jokes about Louis. Like back in like 2012, those were like running gags for us. And then a few years later, it was like, oh,
But with Louis, it's so tough because like I can just hear it in his voice, like that weird nonchalant. Hey, like, do you mind if I just like jerk off?
I'm gonna fucking just fucking jerk off my fucking cock right in fucking front of you.
Just saying cunt to himself
You're a fucking
repeatedly.
stupid cunt. That's exactly how he talks. That's just how I picture it. It's that delivery. It's not like that funny, smooth delivery. It's like him doing like you stupid
The
fucking cunt.
angry thing.
He's
I,
slapping
I think
himself.
too, he had to go to therapy after the
Yeah,
trauma of getting
he's
canceled for masturbating in front of women. And he has a mantra now, and it's just cunt.
he's just
His
laying there and
psychologist just repeat your mantra in your head.
he's like all these fucking cunts just fucking ruined my fucking career. I lost $35 million. Um, well, I have that on here. I had a couple things, but we could talk. I wrote like characters and development and setting a plot twist. We talked about a little bit because I'd like to.
Yeah.
I want to just make a point. I love Billy West. I love Billy West as a Futurama, Red and Stimpy, Howard Stern. I don't like his Shaggy that much. I don't like the Kate. He's kind of doing it like a
Yeah.
Southern. I always thought it was weird. He's like, "Come on, Scoob, let's go eat crawdads." Like it's a weird.
This movie, it wasn't as noticeable, but as this series went on, it really began to show for me.
Yeah, because I think he's only Shaggy this one time.
Oh, you could be right. I'm wondering because I remember like a weird, like in Cyber Chase especially, Shaggy sounded really weird.
Yeah, because Billy West does
Yeah,
not
you're
get.
right.
Yeah, Billy West gets recast, but Shaggy does because he did Bugs Bunny and Space Jam as well. Billy West, and
Yeah, it was Scott in it
I don't think
in the later
I
one.
don't think he nails this. I don't think he nails the Shaggy voice. I hate to say it, like I don't want to be that guy, but like I don't like Shaggy. Shaggy should be like, "Hey, man," and it's more like
Well, you know who they should have gotten? They should have gotten Party Boy.
Giuseppe Andrews.
Yeah, I was trying to remember the name.
Yeah, if we actually did Kinoholics, it would all be Giuseppe Andrews movies. It would be his entire 42 film filmography, and he would be. I'm sure we could get him as a guest.
He'd be the third host.
Yeah, I mean, hey guys, why are we talking about Scooby Doo?
Party
If he was
Boys.
in this movie, it would be perfectly apt.
That's what I'm saying. Like, hey, Scoob, you like to party?
Well, I've said this. This is like what Eli Roth tried to do with Cabin Fever. It's like there is an element of that to this. Like to me, I think he watches this movie. And he's like, "This is fucking dope."
In his defense, if he did try to make Zombie Island, and it is fun with the genre bending, the meta
Oh,
humor, and
don't
all
get
that,
me
I do see
wrong.
a lot of that.
I want Eli
But
Roth Scooby Doo live action movie. I'm not saying don't
yeah.
make that. Please make
Well,
that
my point
movie.
is, if that's like what he's shooting for, that's his Valhalla. Like, I would say every day I wake up hoping for Scooby Doo Zombie Island kind of day. But most days, I'm lucky to get a Scooby Doo Cyber Chase day.
So yeah, I don't know. It's just the voices. I think Daphne sounds fine. Velma sounds fine. Frank Welker's
Mhm.
kind of been the MVP. Shaggy's the iconic voice, but especially Mystery Incorporated. That's when it's like, oh, Frank Welker's fucking amazing. And I even think he does the
Yeah,
voice for Scooby Doo after this movie as well. And
you're right.
he's he's Megatron, obviously, but I'm so glad they didn't recast him because I think Freddy's voice is like so essential to the whole like how Scooby Doo works. Just the like, hey gang, we got to do that. That's such a big part of it. It's weird. It's like Ben Shapiro. Have you noticed these conservative guys all say folks and gang? Like I've seen it with
Yeah,
conservative
I've noticed
commentators, and it's like this out. Like Ben Shapiro's like, okay, gang, all right, folks, like,
we're gonna solve this
all right,
mystery.
gangs, we're gonna solve this mystery with the free market.
Well, I noticed folks is a big thing with like the far left too.
Yeah,
And
they
that might
say.
be like horseshoe theory where like it touches is folks and anti-Semitism. Those are like the two things that far right and far left have in common.
Well, it's like the gang thing though. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd love it, but like nobody in my real life is ever like, okay, gang. You
I
know,
don't know what I'd do if somebody said that.
I would be stuck in my I would like be frozen in time.
Yeah.
I'd be like ready to
I'd
throw
be
down. I'm like, shit, something's going on.
Are you holding a glass, well, a glass of water, and they'd say, "Okay, gang," I just dropped the glass of
Yeah,
water in
it's the
slow
usual
motion,
suspects. You drop the coffee mug, you're like Chaz Palma doing it, smash it.
and as he's walking away, he's putting the ascot on, and
Yeah, it's for he gets in the mystery machine. He drives off. That's funny. Yeah, he like takes a mask off, like it's like a Scooby-Doo reveal. He rips
yeah,
off a mask. It's
he has
like
a
a
wig. He takes it off. It's blonde
it's
underneath.
like a Mission Impossible movie. Well, I have a couple things of our friendship that I'd like to bring up, just Scooby-Doo related. There was a birthday I had, and because you were a cheap bastard, you never like gave me presents except later. But you like,
Mhm.
but real gifts that are great are sentimental. They're not materialistic, in my opinion. And you drew like a Scooby Doo comic for me where they go to it's a sleepaway camp, the camp at that.
Oh, I forgot about
And
that.
I still have it somewhere, and, like, Angela Baker, like, cuts off Scooby-Doo's head at the end, and she's standing there at the end, and then they at the last shot is the mystery machine, and actually, your art style was very charming, and they drive off, and they're driving to Camp Crystal Lake at the end of it, and it's like, "To be continued." So I always remember that, and then there was a second thing I remember where, uh, people may not be able to know, but you have, like, the weirdest hair ever. I've never seen anyone's
Yeah,
hair grow out like
a lot
yours
of people
does.
think it's a wig.
Your hair grows into this, like, bowl, like, this ball, like but it's also
Yeah,
got this
no,
part too, it, like, parts, but it looks like a Beatles haircut, but it's not bangs down straight, and your hair naturally grows that way, and I've never seen anyone's hair do that, ever.
I always compare it to Coconut Head from Ned's Declassified is
Yeah.
probably the closest I've seen.
Yeah, and there was a long period there you, like, wouldn't get haircuts for months, so you had this, like, giant ball of hair, and you dyed your hair like bleach blonde. I think accidentally
Yeah.
even for a period of time. And you worked at Walmart and you had like a blue Walmart shirt. I remember I came to pick you up one night and you were sitting on the bench and then these girls pulled up and rolled the window down and said, "Hey Fred, where's Scoob?" and then drove off. And that's like
That's
one of
not the whole story.
oh
Then
what
we fucked them.
oh I would no coolest girls ever.
Yeah.
Like dude, no, that's like I'll never forget that because
Especially in a small town.
'Cause I remember I was that was, like, a horrible night for me because I didn't know I'd have to come pick you up, and I was, like, super baked out of my mind, and then it was like, "Hey, you gotta go get him at Walmart," and it was, like, like, walkabout
To go
journey.
save him from Walmart.
Yeah, like and I, like, drove to a gas station, and there was a cop there, and I was like, "Oh, shit, he knows."
That's
And,
always the worst thing about going out in public is there's police.
I know. Yeah, no, that's one thing where I'm
It's
with
like that
ev
thing where it's like, "I wanna swim in the ocean, but there's sharks," and it's like,
Yeah.
"I wanna go out in public, but there's cops."
Cops are the sharks of the road, you're very right, but I just remember I pulled up and I was so fucked up, and then when the girls yelled that at you, that was so funny because it was like, "Oh, yeah, your hair looks exactly like Freddy's hair," which I thought was a cartoon character's hair, and it's just like this movie, it's real. It's like, "Oh, shit."
Well,
Yeah,
you did pick me up in the mystery machine.
that point has to be pointed out too. Oh,
That was and you were wearing your green shirt as you did it.
I would pay 100 grand for a mystery machine. I saw Matthew Lillard was like renting out a mystery machine Airbnb in California for like $20 a night, and I'm like, do I want to fly out to California to stay in that?
Well,
But
I think, you
go
yeah,
ahead.
you go on.
No, you go on.
I was gonna make a stupid joke. I was gonna say you get to choose who you get to spend the night with, so you can get the Daphne package or the Fred package or the Velma package. That will be worth the 100
Yeah, you
grand.
get a prostitute, you dress her up as Daphne, and you're like, ooh. Um, so I want to talk about the ending though. I mean, that's kind of the thing. We haven't really talked a lot about the plot and story, although my assumption is everyone's seen it, so like, what's the point? But the fucking
Yeah.
third act of this is insane. Like when you find out the two chicks, and it's more of the obvious plot twist of like the people you don't know or the people behind the mask. That's like a Scooby Doo trope. But the fact that they're evil, ritualistic werewolf people that like
Voodoo dolls that made dolls of them.
Yeah, it's fucking insane. It like the scene of them transforming and it's like the shadow, and then you find out the like Shep, the like guy on the ship, the lovable Cajun guy, he's a werewolf too.
Yeah.
You know,
And I don't know why, but the moon dial was always so creepy to me as a kid.
oh, everything, the necklace, the moon dial,
It's just a cult.
the
It's
voodoo
just evil.
dolls. I've never seen. I mean, it's actually genius in the movie the way that they like move the voodoo dolls around and that has them move around. I've never seen that in a movie. I think
Yeah.
it's really clever.
Well, it's that great thing again where it's animated so you can make them fly. You can do these things with them that you couldn't do in the movie like Carrie or
Well, I
something.
always laugh because you see them when they're the cat people. That's what's so cheap, and you just see them and they're not talking their expression. And when she's just smacking them together, and she's like almost smiling, like "You stupid kids." When
Yeah,
it's
I
it's
I
it's so funny,
whenever
but the backstory they tell when they actually reveal the truth, and you get the backstory of like they all lived at this place, and then the pirates came and basically like pushed all the people into this pond and had
the
them eaten by
gator water.
yeah, and they got no, it's fucking insane. They don't show it, which makes it the implication even darker. And then they're like,
But
then
it's like
we
mass murder in a
then
Scooby-Doo
then we
movie.
gave our soul to Satan, and he gave us powers to avenge our fallen families. And then you're like, wait, the zombies were evil pirates that murdered these people, and then they were killed by these cursed werewolf women who have now the zombies are trapped on the island now
It
and are
really is the Princess Mononoke of Scooby-Doo.
well, the fact that you find out the zombies are trying to tell the gang what's going on, that they're not evil, it's Ghost trying to tell you a positive thing, not the scary thing. I think that's a really great subversion.
Exactly. No, like I mean, I say it humorously, but like the Princess Mononoke was like two opposing sides that both have flaws and attributes, where you see both sides of both the villains. And I don't think I've seen that in another Scooby-Doo movie quite.
Or Scooby Doo, anything. It's the nuance of it. It's the fact that it's,
Yeah,
they're victims
it's
too. They're not just totally evil. They've just been doing this so long. They're almost like how vampires are in vampire movies. It's like, well, you've been alive 1,000 years. It's not evil. They're creatures. They have to
yeah.
do this to survive. So it's like you can't you don't really hate them at the end, but it's genuinely psychologically very messed up. And it was as a kid, and I'm
Well,
still impressed that it is now.
that's what's scary about the idea of a werewolf or an animal. It's like a wild beast, so it's not psychological anymore. Like a wolf's going to hunt. So similarly with these monsters, it's the inhuman factor where it's like, oh, this isn't like murder. This is something else entirely. It's extraterrestrial.
Well, even at the end when the one guy's like, "Thank y'all." Um even though like they were like evil pirates who murdered a bunch of people.
Well, that was like pre like the whole Indian narrative that we have now, where like
Right.
cowboys are evil. Back then, cowboys were good. Indians were evil. Now that paradigm shifts. Like back then, they probably didn't even think of it. They're like, yeah, well, they just fucking killed everybody, but they're pirates. They're just good
Well,
zombies.
you talked about earlier to go back to the aesthetics, the thing where they're like digging the thing on the she's like the wall and it's the message and then Daphne's like, "Did somebody open a window?" And they keep replaying that and then you see the message and then by the end of the movie you realize it's something else. I mean, it's just like the fact they put that thought into it. Um
You know what's really
it's
funny?
just really
I always say
impressive.
like I'd never go back and read a Stephen King book at nearing 30. That would feel like going back like intellectually or something. I could read for just fun. I like Captain Underpants and stuff, but I wouldn't read Stephen King. But I can go back and rewatch Scooby Doo on Zombie Island and genuinely be impressed by the craft of the writing.
Yeah, no, I'm jealous of I think this is a very good screenplay. I think they did a very good job and just the execution of the direction, all that stuff. But once again, I think a big element is just that late '90s aesthetic of it. That there was that influence of things at the time. That there is the meta, like you said, for the Scream generation. I do think there's some Blair Witch, even though they did no Blair. There's even the Scooby Doo project was a thing on Cartoon Network
Yeah.
a couple years later. It makes you think like if you actually did like a found footage Scooby Doo parody, it probably would work in live action because you could just have a dog and you'd be filming it.
I think what we need is like a big budget AAA Scooby Doo video game
I've said that
at this point.
forever. Yeah, because I like Night of 100 Frights and Mystery Man, but I've always said we need like the Arkham Asylum of Scooby Doo, where you go to like a mansion
Exactly.
and it's a puzzle game. in a lot of
Think about
ways.
this.
And you have to
Each
backtrack like in
character
that game.
each character could have different play styles. So like
I
Scooby could be platforming, Fred
Yes.
could be puzzles,
I thought
Shaggy could he's kind of acrobatic in the series, which is a funny thing about him. He's lanky, so maybe there's something you could
yeah,
do with
low
that,
key
where you move
Shaggy
boxes.
very athletic.
He's like a track runner. He's got cardio.
Yeah, I'm so with you, man. I've thought this for 20 years. Like, why does nobody like go all in on a Scooby Doo game that's like great graphics, polished game design, polished level design, a really cool gameplay mechanic with how you put together clues and mysteries, maybe some
Oh, you know
Uncharted
what?
elements or God
With
of War.
Shaggy, you could do a Pac-Man type ripoff, maybe even.
Hmm.
It's a collectathon. He has to collect the sandwiches.
Well, there should also be stuff like, you what you could do with like the running through the doors, but also in my head it would be a lot of like there would be puzzles you would have to solve though. It would be genuinely
You'd
like,
be solving a mystery.
yeah, you have to solve the mystery. It's like a 15-hour game and you're going through this, like, I would say probably stick to one location, but it's just this giant mansion, and in the different parts of it you have to like put all those puzzles together, and there could be boss battles and everything. And yeah, the Scooby-Doo game's kind of split up. You could even have a multiplayer element like the Friday the 13th game where like you just in your group and you have to pick
Yeah.
one of the gang, and then somebody plays the bad guy, and it's all about you have to collect the clues and do these things before they capture you, and that's how you win one of the games. I'd play the shit out
I
of
think
that.
something like the end of Cyber Chase. The third act of Cyber Chase to me is 10 out of 10. I think that's the
Oh yeah.
closest Scooby Doo as a movie has come to Zombie Island. It's not there, but it's very close for me.
Shocking when I first saw it because I was thinking like how mid Cyber Chase was at the time, and then the ending
Oh
is
yeah,
like strangely profound.
yeah. The first half is just kind of okay-ish, typical Scooby Doo, what you'd expect, and then it just completely. It's insane. I've never seen such a strong third act save.
Well, yeah, when they meet like their former selves, but in this digital version.
But the location,
Yeah,
being at the piers and all that with the carnival or whatever the fuck was going on there,
yeah,
that would be a
amazing.
great location for a video game.
Yeah, that's the thing. You could do different maps if it was a multiplayer. Like the Friday 13th
Yeah,
game, you play at the different campsites. We should play that together sometime. That would be a lot of fun.
I have it.
I have it too. I play it all the
I
time.
don't know. It's funny because I got it before I had PSN or whatever the fuck it's called.
Yeah.
So like I just played against the PC and I sucked at it.
Yeah, and we
I
have it
just
on
never learned
we
how to
have it on
play it.
different consoles. We'll figure it out.
Mm,
That'd be a fun game to play
yeah,
together, though. I'd love to play that with you because I don't know. I always
that'd
like
be
playing
cool.
as the well. It's the best slasher game. It's the game I wanted my whole life, where you're running from a serial killer and you have to hide, and it's like and
I've
they
always wanted a game where I was a serial killer.
well, you can do that in the game too,
So
though. You can
yeah,
play as Jason.
exactly.
Um,
That's actually all I did on it. I never played as a victim.
it's more fun on multiplayer if you play as the counselors, but yeah, if you're playing just the computer, there'd be no reason to play together.
Yeah.
But because
Anyhow,
when you're a counselor and you're playing against like a high level Jason, and there's like all of you are just trying to get the fucking car filled up with gas, it's so tense.
it seems like teamwork too is a big
Yeah,
factor if you're
that's
playing as
that's
a counselors with friends.
you have to. If you don't have headsets and you're not working together, it's really hard. And I think that would be a key to the Scooby Doo multiplayer. Um, Even the Evil Dead one, like that's out now, but it would have to be the gang has to work together, and if you don't, then you lose. You know.
Yeah, for sure. That's the thing. I mean, I actually do like the era of Scooby Doo with Scrappy. I like a lot of those shows, but it's not the same. The formula just doesn't work as well.
Well, I think a big factor is just not having Freddy and Velma. I
Yeah,
think I think they
even
under
13 Ghosts, they show up, but it's like they're the special guests of the episode.
Yeah. Well, I think undervaluing them in particular in that time was just strange. I don't get the decision. It was so much like, well, let's do Shaggy and Scooby and then give Scooby a little sidekick. And it's like, do you not get that Freddy and Velma are like, because they wondered why the brand kind of died down and then it got popular again. And I'm like, it got popular again because it was the Scooby Gang again.
I hear a lot of fans say they think Fred is boring. I think a lot of people think Daphne's like a dumb bimbo or something. I never felt that way.
Oh, I think
I always
Fred's,
like Freddy best.
I think Fred's the best. Yeah, easily. I think Fred's
Yeah.
like essential to,
When I was a kid, I liked Shaggy
of
best,
course.
but like as soon as I stopped being fucking stupid, I knew Freddy was the best.
So I have something written down here real quick. That I want to discuss. Can we actually differentiate? And I think we can because we've been talking about the other movies like Witch's Ghost. How much of
Mhm.
this is nostalgia versus this actually being good? Like, are we just like thinking about how good it was as a kid? Because I looked it up. You could look on Wikipedia. This got good reviews, like critically, like the Los Angeles
I've shown it
Times.
to people who didn't see it as a kid, and they've always loved it.
That's the
Like,
thing.
genuinely shocked at the quality of it.
That's the thing I would say about is that this is actually good. That this is one of those things where it's not because most things I think there is the nostalgia factor that are related to this. You know,
Mhm.
the original Scooby Doo is even an example of how much I loved it as a
Oh, for
kid.
sure.
But this is
I mean,
genuine.
I think it holds up as an artifact, like, as someone who loves the history of animation or
Hmm.
film, you can appreciate it, but for me, it's definitely like, I watch this every day obsessively as a kid, so that takes me back there,
So
for the original show.
we're coming up on. God dang. We're coming up on the hour mark, so I think we're up. Do you have any like final
Yeah.
points or anything that you'd like to say about the movie that we didn't cover? Because, like I said, we didn't go into the story and plot much, but I think that's kind of pointless because like everybody's seen the
Yeah.
movie, and
You can look up the Wikipedia synopsis if you want.
well, that's the thing. The most interesting thing was to find out Sky Cycle. Um, but I don't know. Is there what do you take away from it? What if you like had to give like a blurb review or something, or you had to write an article or something? How would you approach discussing uh what this movie is and why it's lasted so long? Because it's I think it's it's stayed with people and it's even finds new audiences today.
I think, every year feel more this way. It's easily one of my favorite animated movies. I think as far as like animated horror goes, I don't think there's even real competition. Um, for me, it's the peak of Scooby Doo, just in terms of like a singular experience. Um, I mean, it's just fanboy. Just I think it's basically just a perfect movie.
So if you were gonna rate it, you would give it like a 10.
I give it 10 reps out of 10.
Like the Chad you are, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, it'd be 12 reps out of
Well, yeah, that's the thing.
12
Yeah, we are
technically.
gonna do the ratings by reps. If this was Kino, it'd be if it's a Kino or not. But yeah,
Yeah,
I will give it
it's not film pussies.
I will give it 8.5 reps out of 10. That would be my rating. Which I think is a very high rating for a straight to video animated film from the
Oh, for
90s.
sure.
But I would say a comparison to this is Mask of the Phantasm, which I think is one of the best Batman movies. And it's got a
Yeah,
lot of
no,
similar
Batman goes up
quality.
against the tall man.
uh I'm trying to think if I missed anything. I think we talked about the aesthetic and the characters and everything like I mean, I guess we could laugh more about the cat people. It's almost like if you had the clips
Real
to
quick,
watch.
real quick, can you fucking imagine a Sentinel sphere going around the corner and all of a sudden a Batarang knocks it out of the fucking air?
That'd be my
That would be
favorite
awesome.
thing ever.
Yeah, and then Batman takes a mask off and it's Kanye.
It just keeps topping itself.
Yeah.
The soundtrack to Akira kicks in. It
And
just
then the camera pans out and you're there and it's actually heaven.
I love this movie. I loved it when it came out. Every time I watch it, I do think it's in the Halloween rotation every year. I think the fact that it moves so quick, the fact it flies by is always really impressive about it. Like you start it and then it's over. It's really one of those movies you can
Yeah.
watch twice in a row.
Well,
Um,
that's something really special because movies today, and I
yeah.
get it, they want people to go to theaters, the ticket prices are getting higher, so you make the length higher to justify the cost. But I'm much happier seeing an hour 20-minute movie that milks every minute than a 2 hour movie. I mean, like, what is it, Captain America Civil War, going back to that, like, that movie, if it was half an hour shorter, I'd give it an extra, like, 1 star, 1 rep. I give it an
Agreed.
extra rep
Yeah, it's funny.
if it just lost the
I saw
meat.
a David Chase interview before Saints of New York came out, and then I saw the movie and it was garbage. But he said like so many movies are too long today, and I want this movie to be under 2 hours. And I was like, man, that is the big thing. It's just how fucking
Yeah.
dragged out movies are nowadays, like how laborious they are and everything. And then you're like, yeah, most movies shouldn't be longer than 90 minutes. Most movies
No,
don't
most
have
movies
enough
I'd be
material
much.
for that.
Yeah, most movies I would not give as so harsh of a noogie to if they just didn't waste my fucking time.
Yeah, if you just got to the point and you ended it.
That's the bad ratings from now on, by the way, noogies or swirlies. Instead of a thumbs down, that's what we do. I'm shoving this movie in the locker.
Just shoving their fist up their ass, like, um,
I'm
we
gonna
didn't
super glue this kid's
we didn't
ass
talk about
shut.
Scooby at all, though, which is weird because I always feel so Scooby-Doo. I think Scooby's like one of the weakest parts of Scooby-Doo in general as a franchise.
Yeah.
Um, so it's funny to say because yeah, it's just he's a talking fucking dog, you can't do
Well,
much with it. But
I've been hearing for a long time, like he's more dog-like in the original show. And when you're a kid, you don't pick up on that,
right.
you know. But I definitely noticed it going back and rewatching those episodes lately. Is like it's weird in Mystery Inc. or other more modern stuff. Even this, he chases a cat. He has certain dog elements, but it's really just serving the plot. He's not like in every scene. You're not even aware he's a dog sometimes, really.
Well, who do you think in the main group comes out best in this movie? Like, who do you think shines in the main?
For me, it's always been Fred. I love the fit. I like the redesign, the peppers. I think he's getting because the thing is with Shaggy is he was already so well developed, and I do think this is when Fred really starts coming into his own. Where you get stuff like a pup named Scooby Doo, where he hates red herring and
Hmm.
he has little quirks. But to me, this is the first time that Fred feels fully fleshed out and reaching his potential.
Yeah,
Maybe Daphne too. I think the two of them, and that might be why I
yes,
like those two best, is
I
because this is my Scooby.
I don't disagree. I think this is the moment that they start treating those two with more definition because they didn't really have definition in the original show that much. It was like Daphne got kidnapped and Freddy was the leader, but in this, they're people. Where Shaggy and
Yeah,
Velma always were, that's always they always had an appeal to them because you're like, oh, I know who a lot of like nerd stereotypes or hippie stereotypes, beatnik stereotypes we associate with
yeah,
Velma and Shaggy. Where like after you see this, you go, okay, now I get what Freddy's personality is. Now I
exactly.
get Daphne's kind of a smart ass in a sense,
You
she's
know, is this a stretch to say if they made Daphne the Gale, would you say that Fred is the Dewey in
oh
this movie?
yeah, he's a goofball in
Because he
this
has those
movie.
qualities.
Oh, he's a total goofball in this movie the whole time. He's basically the part where they're at the dinner and he's like eating the food and he's like,
Yeah,
this is the
that's the thing.
finest. That's the best shit. It's so
Making him
funny.
just goofy, where it's like he's a lovable jock, where he's kind of airheaded, but he has a heart of gold. Like it's just shocking it took them this long.
Well, the fact that he's just like her cameraman too, he's like simping. It's like
Yeah.
Freddie didn't go too far in life. Like I didn't know Freddie's like, I want to be a
Well,
cinematographer.
I didn't want to bring this up, but I did find it kind of jarring that Daphne works at Blacked.com and Freddy's just the cameraman.
And he's like, hey, I got the whole gang together. We're gonna go around and shoot the new series. And this time, the black dicks are real.
She rips the con. What's underneath this?
Yeah, Scooby Doo on Cuck Island. Yeah, I don't know. I guess if I'd summarize it, I think that what makes this really work, besides on a surface level, that like the mystery is easily the best one of just a standalone mystery of anything Scooby Doo. The setting I think is
Yeah.
like up there. I don't think this is the best setting of any Scooby Doo movie. I think some of the
Well,
show.
that's what's tough. Scooby's got real atmosphere.
Yeah, yeah. In general, a lot of the Scooby stuff has atmosphere. So it's not like because even this, a Bayou, they did that in the original show with the witch episode. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
it's not like the setting blows me away or the mystery, but I would say the thing that stands out more than anything is just the character interactions and dynamics with the horror elements and how those things have a symbiotic relationship with each other. Like when you brought that they're down in the pit and all that stuff, the way that that's like shot and the light, the way it comes down into that, and even that guy we didn't bring it up, but the garden guy that's in this.
Oh yeah, the red herring situation.
Yeah, the way they do all of that, the way that even that is very Scream, kind of the fake out with him. It's
Hmm.
very much, but the way they,
Even making him a hunk is very like
yeah,
Scream, very Kevin Williamson. Where he's, I think him and Velma kind of have a weird chemistry.
yeah. In fact, the Kevin Williams thing's dead on because I even think about a CW shows like there's some Dawson's Creek
Yeah.
to this as well. And I just think James Vanderbeek is Freddy instead of Freddie Prince Jr. And I'm like, yes, Yes, I like that. That would have been nice because I fucking hate Freddie Prinze Jr. in that Scooby Doo movie. Uh,
I think with this movie, the best thing I could say about it is that, and it might be hyperbolic, but I think it saved Scooby Doo as a franchise because I think it successfully brought them into the then modern age
yes,
and translated these classic characters to a fresh audience, and it got old audience members interested in it again. And if Zombie Island didn't hit it out of the park, I don't really know if Scooby Doo would still be as relevant.
I 100% agree. I think it sets up the movie being a big deal. I think it sets up the new. No, because I was there. That's exactly what it was. It was kids rewatching the old show and having a lot of nostalgia, and there wasn't anything new Scooby Doo coming out. And then this came out, and yeah, it was like a movie like. I watched this with my parents, and they liked it. It was like it's almost like that Goofy movie thing where at the moment I think people underappreciate it now. At time, it's like, oh, that's
Yeah.
like that almost like if that didn't exist, I don't know if Goofy would be relevant at all. And I already think he's pretty irrelevant, but I think that like just kept it alive a little bit longer. But yeah, this brought it into the 2000s, and then you got the new shows. You got What's New Scooby Doo. You got the different movies that followed this one up. You got the live action films, and then it was like Scooby Doo was a huge franchise again. Video games were coming out, and it just stayed that way for like years after this movie. And yeah, I think this is a rare example of a franchise that started in the 60s that was a Hanna-Barbera thing. It's not like the Flintstones bounced back. It's not like the Jetsons, you know.
They've threatened to every few years. It's always like,
Seth
is this flavor
MacFarlane.
of the week gonna revive it? Yeah, and thank God they don't.
But you're always waiting around like it's going to happen. And then I'll say this about Scooby-Doo in general. It's not just specific to this movie in general, but just I and I think it's why it's outlasted the other Hanna-Barbera stuff and a lot of cartoons. It's just kind of a perfect formula. Like the only thing that would make me love this more is if Mulder and Scully showed up. You know what I mean? Like there's an
I
episode.
was actually gonna ask. This is gonna be my question. The episode was who you want as your guest of the week, and I was
Oh,
thinking about bad ideas that we would
oh,
pitch.
Fox
Like
Mulder.
John Cusack would be. I was thinking that would be fun, but Dave Duchovny would phone it in. Is the only thing that sucks.
Well, he did. There's that Simpsons episode though.
That is true.
That's it.
I was thinking John Cusack in Scooby would be the funniest bad guest ever
That's a good
because
bad
he wouldn't
one.
translate at all.
No, yeah, that would be the good bad one because I'm just like, yeah, the only because the way that I love like Twilight Zone or X Files or these other shows or a lot of the CW shows I think are Scooby Doo clones in a big way.
Yeah.
Um, the formatting of it, the formula, like it's a group of these people, they go solve mysteries, they reveal them, and then they kind of hit every archetype with the characters, and it just has this longevity that nothing else really has. Because they keep you can keep even if I don't like a new Scooby Doo show, or I don't like where it's at now. Like there's a show now, Guess Who Scooby Doo, and there's other ones I don't like. You're always
Hmm.
kind of waiting around, like, well, you know what? Like they're gonna do something with it eventually that I like, or
Well, that's what's funny
something's gonna happen.
is that like they've earned such like respect or like loyalty that you're not even mad when a new show comes out and sucks. It's like, okay, maybe with the next one, it's just a bad season. Like your sports team has a bad
Well,
year,
yeah, because I
is
think
how it
about it,
feels.
like there's a bunch of the movies I love. I like a lot of the shows like you do. I love this movie. I think Mystery Incorporated's a great show. And then I'm just like, man, there's so much Scooby Doo content that I love. It's like what I'm spoiled. It's not like I'm lacking in good Scooby Doo stuff. There's a lot of good Scooby Doo stuff. A Pup Named Scooby Doo is really good.
I'm surprised there aren't more Scooby Doo children's books. I think that could translate really well for like young readers kind of content.
Now I
The
wanted to,
mystery angle, the cartooniness.
and I wanted to ask you. There was a sequel to this in 2019 called Return to Zombie Island. Did you ever see that?
Yeah, I love it. No,
I've
no,
never.
I remember it came out and it looked
Yeah,
like shit, and I saw like clips. And I was like, "Fuck this! It
all
doesn't
the stuff
exist."
that's new looks like shit to me, like the straight to video movies. And I'm like, this just shows you where we're
Yeah,
at, like in a different market. Like because to me, like Mystery Incorporated, like is when that was on Netflix, I'm like, this is a perfect Netflix show. You know what I mean? Like you can watch
yeah.
like 10 episodes of this in a row.
Now, like I guarantee in like that Zombie Island sequel, like John Cena shows up or something.
Well, that's the
Because
thing.
every fucking one has WWE for
The
some fucking reason,
supernatural guys were like,
which is hysterical. Like I appreciate the
yeah,
campiness of it, but like
yeah, no.
I also want actually good content as well.
Yeah, because is that different from like them meeting the Harlem Globetrotters or Batman and Robin, or, or Don Knotts and stuff like
Yeah.
we talked about it if Woody Allen had been one of the guests on the old Scooby-Doo
I was just thinking like Dawn to West in
show.
Scooby Doo. Ye directs the episode. He puts his mom. He doesn't put himself in. Or he puts Dropout Bear. It's his mom and Dropout Bear in the episode.
But I don't know. The fact that this came out in the late '90s and those Alvin and the Chipmunk movies, those Batman, in the quality of that stuff, or even like straight to video horror movies back then, and then just the quality of things now, it's just such a jarring from 20 years where it's like I have more faith that there'll be a good Scooby-Doo thing that's on YouTube than I do there being some kind of movie that's going to be good.
Yeah, well, I think the thing is too is like I know there's gonna be Scooby. Like I know I'm gonna die before Scooby Doo stops putting shit out. So like, there's just a confidence that like eventually, just by sheer like probability, that eventually they have to fuck up and produce something good. It's just a matter of like when.
Yeah, exactly. That's how like the video game. That's going to happen eventually. It's just
I never read them, but they had to call, they aged them up. It just looked to me very. There's this whole trend back when I was in college where like there'd be T-shirts of mugshots of princesses and they had tattoos. There's a funny thing where it's like trying to be like I'm mature now, and it's like I'm mature because I identify as this Disney princess, but she has tattoos rather than real fucking maturity. They did that with the Scooby characters. Was like Shaggy probably smoked weed. I guarantee they all had tribal tattoos and bullshit. Um, and some people like that. I think they went to hell eventually. But you could do a good Scooby Doo comic series. It doesn't have to be a show.
well, I even thought about it. I mean, this is a stupid pitch, but I thought about it like if you did have to do like the HBO Max and they're like you have to do live action Scooby Doo. I think I would approach it like as grounded as possible. Like I would have Scooby just be a dog. He wouldn't talk. It would just be a Great Dane that Shaggy owns, and I would have Shaggy be like, yeah, just like a stoner guy that's cool. I wouldn't have him be running around. Like I would try to make it like if they actually existed in the real world and they got involved in a mystery, like Shaggy would just be some guy, and Scooby, like he'd be eating food, and Scooby would come up and rub up on his leg and stuff like that. And he'd be like, "Stop, man." That's how I would approach it if you were gonna do it that way. Um, and they're just like normal people. But yeah, I think that's limiting it. I think it's like comic books, video games. There's just so much potential in different avenues where you want to see different textures of and that's what this movie is. This movie is more textured than what we were used to with Scooby Doo previously, and
Well,
I
you
think
know what might
that's
save Scooby Doo? This is a fucked up thing to say, but I do think it's possible. Becoming public access. Or not.
public
What's it called?
domain. Domain.
Yeah, that's it. Public domain. Yeah, like even I don't like it, but like Winnie the Pooh going public domain, like there's horror movies coming out with him. It just seems lazy and cheap to me. But there is potential there where somebody could make a great Winnie the Pooh movie that couldn't have before.
Lee Winnell's Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah,
James
it's
Wan Scooby Doo. The Conjuring couple. It's a Scooby Doo
Zack
thing.
Snyder's Winnie the Pooh. He's a warrior. He's fucking ripped.
With the new soundtrack from Sky Cycle.
Oh bother.
I mean, if I told somebody that was a band name, they would be like, "You're fucking with me."
Yeah. I
Like,
mean, to be fair, there's so many bands that eventually make maybe everything was taken. Like you get on Twitter now, you
yeah,
don't get a good username.
yeah. To be
Maybe
fair,
Sky Cycle, that's just what was
yeah. To
available.
be fair, as the guy who created Cinema Chads with this friend, I think, yeah, I think we're a testament to that. Where it's like, God damn it, there's no names.
Well, I mean, not everybody can be as smart as us. Not everybody can just come up with cinema chads. We're speaking to the common
Well, I
people.
left it the name at the animation studio, Mook Animation.
I saw that.
Just to, thank God they took that letter. Like, if you changed one fucking letter in that, like,
It
holy
would have been
shit.
book.
Well, it says here, it said that Dahl had a relationship with the team at Mook as they previously collaborated on SWAT Cats and Johnny Quest, which I was a big fan of that. And then I was
Yeah,
reading this.
both good.
Hiroshi Oyama and Kazumi Fukushima, we're talking about an anime, directed the overseas animation but are not credited on the picture. The film was animated and presented in a standard 133 to 1 full frame format. The
I'm
team,
imagining these two names you just said are like 7-year-old children overseas in a sweatshop.
all right, little Kazumi Fukushima, you have to get work done. My hands hurt.
He doesn't even get credit.
Well, they said here the team felt Fred and Daphne with their ascots and Fred's bell bottoms felt very dated to the 60s. Although the original designs were used in the opening scene, they briefly changed Shaggy's shirt color to red and gave him sneakers, though quickly relented as they viewed his original outfit as more timeless, which I think is true. I think people would still dress like Shaggy.
Yeah, it's just a T-shirt.
The group were trusted by the studio's management as they had worked together for a long time, and all involved with the film had a real passion for the project. Drew Gentle was the main background designer for the project,
What a
with,
great name.
yeah, Drew Gentle, with
That sounds like a Pixar character.
with Falk contributing the film's color key. Occasionally, the crew would hire freelance artists to contribute to ancillary designs. In addition, the group entitled enlisted the assistance of Iowa Takamoto, the original designer of Scooby-Doo, who was still at salary at Hanna-Barbera for advising on scenes. Takamoto called the film a good solid mystery. A good solid mystery. And storyboarded several sequences of interplay between Shaggy. So just like that, when you read that stuff, I think that's a big reason why so much of this is good, is all that.
Yeah, what gives me real Team Silent vibes with Silent Hill, where it's like they were the B team at Konami, and they just banded together to make something they were passionate about.
Well, did you read the Casey Kasem thing that he just didn't do it because he was vegetarian?
Oh no, I didn't know that.
That's what it always was. That's why Shaggy eats eggplant burgers in the live action movie. They made Shaggy vegetarian. Casey Kasem wouldn't voice Shaggy if he ate meat in anything in the new shows. And they even tried to offer him after Billy West recorded, like, you can re-record, and he said no. That's why he didn't do a Burger King commercial as Shaggy in the 90s.
I mean, on one hand, I want to say like he's sticking to his values, but vegan values just fucking.
Yeah, that's the hill you're gonna die on.
I mean, my whole issue is that like Shaggy's a character based around just eating giant subs, which are filled with meat. I don't know. I can't deal with that shit.
Yeah, no, yeah, no. I don't want to be shitting on Casey Kasem, but like,
It's like, come on, man.
top 5 reasons I'm an idiot. Number 1, I'm a vegan.
I'm trying to remember what the hell's that guy's name?
Who? Casey Kasem.
Oh, I thought you were impersonating Creeps or whatever,
Oh,
that YouTuber that has
oh
the
no, I can't do a Casey
number
Kasem. No,
one.
Casey Kasem used to do his top 5. It was a radio. It was like the top 5 of 1973.
Oh, I was thinking the YouTuber guy that's always Chills. I think that's his name. He's the top
You
10.
fucking zoomer. I'm bringing up this like 70s radio show, and you're like, oh, you're doing Mr. Beast or something.
Yeah, no,
Cool.
you're doing that TikTok challenge.
I don't have much else to say to you.
Yeah.
I think we encapsulated pretty well.
No, I don't think anybody needs to talk about this movie anymore, really. I
Yeah,
mean, it's summed up.
we went to the length of this movie. It's 77 minutes, and we're at that exact mark. So I think that's a good place to end it. You could listen to this while you watch the movie.
As a matter of fact, don't watch the movie. Just listen to this instead.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, there's a donation button on videos now. Before you had to like do super chats doing live streams, but you can actually donate directly to a YouTube channel now. So anyone who likes this and wants more of this, because we want to keep doing this, can you please just donate, even if it's $1? I don't care. We don't have a Patreon. But some money would be nice just to make the production a little bit better. And we'll be talking about other horror movies throughout October. We already have a list of a few things we want to go over. We won't spoil them here. And that's about it. Just make sure you subscribe. And is there anything you want to promote, or you have anything going on that people can go look at or read or
Yeah, I'm
watch?
going to be at Madison Square Garden on the 5th of October. and I'm going to be going on tour. So go out to my website, and I'll be in your city probably.
He's opening for Sky Cycle, so make
I didn't want to mention that because I didn't want to be too transparent about the reason we chose this movie, but
we're the guys from Sky Cycle. I
yeah.
just didn't want to. I didn't want to say it, but that's the truth. All right, man. Hey, thanks for joining me on this. That was fun.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, thank you to everybody for listening.